Hallo, liebe Freunde und Zuschauer, und willkommen bei German for English Speakers. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the second chapter of my book, German for English Speakers. This chapter is about nouns, and in this chapter, what we'll do is we'll do a quick review of what a noun is for anyone who missed that day at school. Then we'll talk about some rules that can help you determine the gender of German nouns. And finally, we'll talk about the different categories of noun and how to make them plural. We'll do some activities today as well to practice, and the exercises that I have in the video here use different words than the ones that are in my book. So if you want to get some extra practice with German nouns by determining their gender and working out their plural forms, you can also pick up a copy of the book for more practice. Okay, so let's begin with what I said. What is a noun? A noun is, according to what we're taught in school, a person, a place, or a thing. So a person, the Englishman, the dentist, the nurse, the man, the boy, the girl, the woman, the baby. All those things are people. They're all nouns. People, places, the park, the gym, the bedroom, the flat, the apartment, the building, places, and things, stones, pebbles, pens, computers, tables, beds, everything, right? So the words that are people, places, and things are nouns. And in German, something that you should know, which you probably already know, is that all nouns have a gender, a linguistic gender. And there are three linguistic genders in German. There is, as we can see here, männlich, which is masculine, weiblich, which is feminine, and sächlich, which is neuter. And we use different words for the as well whenever we're talking about things. So, for example, for a masculine noun, the word for the would be der. For a feminine noun, it would be die. And for a neuter noun, it would be das. Those are what we call definite articles. In English, we use the. We don't have linguistic gender anymore in English like we used to when we spoke Old English. So let's just one more time with that. Männlich is masculine, and we use the word der with the noun. Weiblich is feminine. We use the word die. Sächlich is neuter, and we use the word das. Now, these words, der, die, and das, will change depending on the case that the noun is in. But at this time, we don't need to worry about that. We'll talk about cases later. At the moment, all we're doing is focusing on how to determine the gender of a noun. One thing that you should note about German nouns is that they're always capitalized, no matter where they are in a sentence. So if we look at this one, der Hund beißt den Mann. The dog bites the man. The word for dog, Hund, and the word for man, Mann, both have capital letters, even though they're not the first word in the sentence. German nouns are capitalized no matter where they are in the sentence. This is not the same case for pronouns. So, for example, the word for I, ich, is only capitalized if it comes at the start of a sentence. The only pronoun that gets capitalized is sie, the formal U, spelt like this. This is the only one that has a capital letter no matter where it is in the sentence. Otherwise, all the other pronouns are not capitalized. But nouns, people, places, and things, are always capitalized. That way we can spot them a little bit easier in German. Okay. A little tip for learning new vocabulary and remembering the gender is that instead of just learning, for example, the word Hund or Katze or Pferd, we want to learn der Hund, die Katze, das Pferd. If you learn the gender of the word while you learn the word, you're far more likely to remember it in the future. And this will save you a lot of time going back and having to look up genders. This was a mistake that I made. When I first started teaching myself German when I was 15, I, like a right idiot, thought, I don't need to learn these genders. I just learn the words. And I completely ignored the advice that I found online and in books that suggested that I do this very thing that I'm now recommending that you do. I spent the first, I think, 2 years learning German without really paying attention to the genders. And what that meant was whenever I realized that you actually need the gender for lots of different bits of grammar, I was rather stuck, and I had to kind of go back and try to relearn the genders. I don't recommend that. I do recommend you try to learn the gender and the noun at the same time. There's another little trick that you can try to increase your vocabulary and remember the gender of words, and that is to create a kind of unusual sentence that uses nouns of the same gender. So these are, instead of making flashcards of like one word at a time, maybe make a little sentence, something that's a bit unusual, so that you can really picture it in your mind, and you'll hopefully be able to remember both the vocabulary and the genders. So my example here is der Elefant tanzt auf dem Zaun. The elephant is dancing on the fence. Both the word elephant and fence are masculine. And if you create sentences like this and really visualize them, it can help get those words stuck into your head. And you will learn the gender at the same time because you're keeping the gender the same in your crazy sentences. Now, lots of people, whenever I'm teaching German, ask me, is there a way that you can work out the gender of a word just by looking at it? The short answer is no. The long answer is there are some rules that can help us, but they're not always perfect. So, yes, there are rules, and no, sometimes they don't help. Um, Unfortunately, if you're going to take learning German quite seriously, you will hear this a lot. You will hear, here's the rule. Oh, and here are the exceptions. Exceptions. Or sometimes I like to just say, but after I give a rule. The rule is A plus B equals C. But in this case, you'll find this happens a lot in German. There are exceptions to everything, but that doesn't mean the rules are not useful. So let's begin. Gender rules. Okay, so some of the rules here definitely work, and some of the rules will have exceptions. Let's start off by determining masculine nouns. All the seasons of the year, the days of the week, and the months of the year are all masculine, okay? Der Winter, der Montag, der Januar, okay? Seasons, days of the week, months of the year are all masculine, and this rule is 100% true. I can't think of any exceptions. If there is an exception, stick it in the comment box for me to cry about later. Second rule, men. Surprise, surprise. Men, their names, their titles, like job titles, their nationalities are all linguistically male. Der Hans. So normally in English, we wouldn't say the in front of a person's name, but in some varieties of German, particularly in the South, you might hear people say, I am the, and then their name, ich bin der Ruben, for example. Doctor is a job title, and this is the male form of the word, so der Arzt, masculine, der Amerikaner, the American, as in the American man. This word means a man from America. Any nouns that end in ling, ich, or ich are masculine. Der Liebling, the favorite. Der Teich, the pond. Der König, the king. Nouns that end with ist, or er. Der Feminist ends with ist. It is a masculine word. Der Motor ends with or. masculine word. Der Bär ends with a umlaut R. It's masculine. Okay, so those are our rules that help us with working out some male nouns. Of course, there are many, many, many other male nouns that don't quite fit into these categories, but these ones will help you at least with certain nouns. Moving on to feminine, and surprise, surprise again, women are feminine. So their names, their titles, and their nationalities are linguistically female. So again, in English, we don't usually put the in front of people's names, but depends on your variety of German. Die Jessica is feminine. Die Ärztin, so this is the female job title for doctor. Die Ärztin, it ends in IN. And actually, nationalities will also end in IN. So job titles that end in IN, nationalities that end in IN are female, they're women. So die Ärztin is a female doctor. Die Amerikanerin is an American woman. Okay. Nouns that end in I, E, ion, or ung are feminine. So, for example, die Polizei, the police, it ends in EI, feminine. Die Fantasie ends in IE, it's feminine. Die Nation, the nation, ends in ION. And also we don't have an example here. Can I think of one off the top of my head? I believe I can. Die Ahnung. The idea. Die Ahnung. Actually, you'll hear this phrase, this word used quite a lot in a phrase. Ich habe keine Ahnung. Ich habe keine Ahnung, which means I have no idea. Ich habe keine Ahnung. Okay. Nouns that end with heit, kite, or schaft. These are suffixes, noun suffixes, and these three always create a feminine noun. Die Gesundheit ends in heit, it's feminine, it means health. Die Freiheit ends in heit, it's feminine. Die Freundschaft, the friendship, ends in schaft, it's feminine. Okay, and then that's our rules for feminine nouns. On to neuter nouns. Verbs, that is our doing words, running, jumping, swimming, climbing, eating, dancing, whatever it may be. When we use their full forms, which we call them infinitives, their infinitive form, and we use it as a noun, they get a capital letter. And if it's the full form of the verb that's being used as a noun, it will always be neuter. So, for example, essen as a verb means to eat. But, hold on, let me put these together so they're easier to see. Essen as a verb means to eat, but das Essen with a capital E means food. Radfahren as a verb means to cycle, but when we use it as a noun, das Radfahren, the cycling. Schwimmen means to swim as a verb, and as a noun, the swimming, das Schwimmen. Our second rule for neuter are nouns that end in chen, lein, or tum. Actually, I think we could also just think of that as ending in but tum works as well because it's a suffix. So we have, for example, das Mädchen, which means the girl, literally means a little maid. Das Mädchen, the girl. Fräulein, a young lady. This word isn't as used so much anymore. It has a kind of it's a bit condescending to call a woman Fräulein these days. So best to avoid it, but it's a good example of a word with lein as a suffix. Das Eigentum, the property. Das Eigentum, ending in tum. There is actually another rule that we could kind of add here. we've got A, B. C would be many, although not all, so this is one of the rules that we need to take with a bit of a pinch of salt. Many foreign loanwords that are brought into German from other languages, such as French and English, or maybe not even French, English a lot. The plural form will be would have an S on the end, and these are usually, although not always, usually neuter. So foreign loanwords often are neuter when they're brought into German. But again, take it with a pinch of salt. Let's have a go at a quick exercise. I've got 20 nouns here. Oh, and they're not in line. Now they're in line. We've got 20 nouns. I'll read them all for you first. Then I'll give you a chance to pause the video. And using the rules that we've just discussed, see if you can determine the gender of these nouns and put in the blank space either der, die, or das. Der for masculine, die for feminine, and das for neuter. Okay, so let me read the words. I'll give you the translation of the words when I read them. Geographie is geography. November is November. Zentrum is center. Dienstag is Tuesday. Herbst is autumn or fall. Heiligtum is a relic or a hallow. Bäcker is a baker. Bäckerei is a bakery. Katze is a cat. Kätzchen is a kitten. Fliegen is flying. Japanerin is a Japanese woman. Handwerker is a carpenter. Kindlein is a little kid, a little child. Einsamkeit is loneliness. Schmetterling is butterfly. Reichtum is rich, like the riches. Nation is nation. Wissenschaft is science. Niveau is level. Okay. You may now pause the video and try to fill in the correct genders of these words. Pause the video now. I'm about to give out the answers. 3, 2, 1. Let's begin. Geography ends with IE. That means it must be feminine. Die Geographie. November is a month of the year, and they are all masculine. Der November. Zentrum ends with UM. That means it must be das Zentrum. Dienstag is a day of the week, therefore it is masculine. Herbst is a season of the year, therefore it is masculine. Heiligtum ends in tum, tum. That means it's neuter. Der Bäcker is a job title for a man, so it is der Bäcker. Bäckerei ends in EI, so it's feminine, die Bäckerei. Katze is a noun that ends in E, and while I'm aware there wasn't a specific rule for this, often 60-70% of the time, if something ends in an E, it's going to be feminine, die Katze. However, although we know die Katze is feminine, the next word ends in chen, which means little. It's like a diminutive, wee, cute. And that is das. If it ends in chen, it's das Kätzchen. Fliegen is a noun that is being used, the wrong way around. It is a full verb that is being used as a noun, so it's das Fliegen. Japanerin has a female ending. This is a Japanese woman, so die female nationality, die Japanerin. Handwerker is another job title that's masculine, der Handwerker. Kindlein, Lein, makes us use das. Those that end in line are always neuter. Einsamkeit, something that ends in kite, is going to be feminine, die Einsamkeit. Something that ends in link is going to be masculine, der Schmetterling. Something that ends in tum is going to be neuter, das Reichtum. Something that ends in ion is going to be feminine, die Nation. Something that ends with schaft is going to be feminine as well, die Wissenschaft. And this is a foreign loan word from French. In this case, it's going to be das. Okay, so those are some rules that we can use to determine the gender in German. Now, let's move on to take a look at the rules for how to make our nouns plural. Okay, then, so let's take a look at plural forms. How do we make a noun plural? And what do I mean by plural? Well, first of all, we should look at English. In English, we usually put an S on the end of our nouns to show that there's more than one of them. So if we use this lovely cow as an example, in English, the word cow refers to one cow. But if there's more than one, we would put an S on the end, right? Cows. Unfortunately, German doesn't quite work like this. So in English, about 95% of the time, we just put an S on the end of the word. In German, there are many different ways to make a noun plural, and you can't just pick and choose. Nouns fall into categories of how they become plural. Before we look at the categories, I would like to give you another small bit of advice. So I already told you that creating crazy sentences can help you to remember the gender of words if you put nouns in that are of the same gender. And I also advised you to learn the gender as you learn the word. I would also advise you to try to learn the plural form of the noun when you learn the noun. So instead of just learning the word Kuh, which means cow, it would be better to learn something like this: die Kuh, and then know its plural form. And this is what you'll often see in dictionaries. Something like this tells us how to make the noun plural. In this case, it shows an umlaut and an E. So we have to put an umlaut on the vowel and put an E on the end. So die Kuh becomes die Kühe. Die Kuh becomes die Kühe. If you can learn the singular and the plural at the same time when you're learning new vocabulary, you will save yourself a massive headache later. But I'm aware that that's not so simple and it's time consuming, but do your best. It really will save you a massive migraine later. Okay, let's take a look. Excuse me. Let's take a look at some of the categories. Excuse me. Now, the first category is beautiful. Any nouns that end in el, en, er, chen, and line, they're mostly going to be masculine, and they do not change. So the noun that you know, for example, der Morgen, which ends in en, the plural is also going to be morgen. The only thing that changes is our word for the. So instead of der Morgen, die Morgen. Die is also the definite article when we're using plural nouns. Der Finger ends in er, so the plural is die Finger, no change. Das Mädchen ends in chen, no change. Die Mädchen, das Mädchen, die Mädchen, singular and plural. So, category one, very nice. Try to remember this rule: L, N, Rchen, and line. Okay, category number 2, we add an umlaut. So, the endings for these nouns also match the endings above. So, en, el, cn, and line, and so on. Knowing which ones needs an umlaut to become plural will come with progress. So, in other words, the more familiar you get with German and the more you read, you'll be able to determine which of the nouns require umlauts and which don't. Unfortunately, we can't just tell by looking at the noun, so it's something you have to learn in practice. The vast majority of nouns in this category will also be masculine. So der Vater, the father, becomes die Vetter, die Vetter. Der Apfel, the apple, becomes die Äpfel, die Äpfel. Der Mantel becomes die Mäntel. So we change them by putting an umlaut on them, and that makes them plural. Category number 3. Most of the nouns in this category will either be masculine or neuter. They will have one syllable. And then all we do is put an E on the end to create the plural. So der Hund, that's one syllable, Hund, becomes die Hunde. Das Jahr, one syllable, die Jahre. Der Tag, die Tage. Nice and easy. One syllable masculine and neuter nouns. Put an E on the end. Umlaut plus E, similarly to the last category, it's also single syllable nouns, but this time they're usually, not always, usually feminine. They need an umlaut and an E. So die Hand becomes die Hände, die Nacht becomes die Nächte, die Wurst becomes die Würste. Okay, so single syllable nouns that are feminine most of the time. Sometimes you will come across a masculine noun that also needs this umlaut E, but mostly feminine. Category 5. We need to add ER. Nouns in this particular category have one syllable and are mostly neuter. So das Lied becomes die Lieder, das Kind becomes die Kinder, das Ei becomes die Eier. Okay, neuter one syllable nouns. Umlaut plus ER. Again, these are usually one syllable nouns that are either masculine or neuter. Das Haus becomes die Häuser. Der Mann becomes die Männer. Das Land becomes die Länder. Category 7. This category and the next category are made up of almost entirely feminine nouns, and they often end with an E. So if a noun ends with an E, about 70% of the time or more, it's going to be feminine. And if it ends in an E, 90% of the time, the plural form is going to be to put an N on the end. So die Tante becomes die Tanten, die Schule becomes die Schulen, die Woche becomes die Wochen. Okay? Now, category 8, a little bit like category 7, these are mostly feminine nouns, and most feminine nouns take an EN to become plural. Die Tür, die Türen, die Frau, die Frauen, die Zeitschrift, die Zeitschriften. Category 9, we add nen. This is a special plural ending which only gets added to feminine nouns that end in IN. So these are going to be job titles and nationalities for women. Die Ärztin, die Ärztinnen. Die Freundin, die Freundinnen. Die Iren, die Irinnen. And category 10, which is the last of our categories, we add an S. Usually, these are going to be foreign loanwords. Often when foreign loanwords get brought into German, especially English foreign loanwords, they just keep the English plural form, so putting an S on the end. This also works for abbreviations and nouns that end in vowels, like A, E, I, O, U. So, for example, der Park, die Parks. Der VW, die VWs. Das Auto, die Autos. Okay, that's a lot to digest. 10 categories in total. I don't expect you to remember them all immediately. And to be honest with you, while it's a good idea to learn about different categories, mostly you're going to work out what a noun's plural form is by simply reading or listening to German and hearing these words being used in context. Sometimes you will have to look up what the plural form of a noun is because you won't know what category it fits into. And that's perfectly normal, and it's a perfectly normal part of the process of learning German. It's just unfortunate that German isn't as simple as English, where we just put an S on the end of everything. However, having lots of different plural forms certainly gives the language a bit more flavor. So we're going to do another little exercise before we finish up the video. This time we've got 15 nouns, and we want to work out what category they fit into and write their plural forms next to them. So there are 15 in total. Let me once again read them out, tell you what they mean, and then you can pause the video and try your best to work out their plural forms. You might need to look up some of the plural forms, or you can go back in the video to check to see which category each of the nouns may fit into. The first word, das Ferkelchen, is a little piglet. The word Ferkel already means piglet, but a Ferkelchen making it a little bit cuter, a little piggy. Die Jacke is a jacket. Das Sofa is a sofa. Die Mitarbeiterin is a colleague. Die Kiwi is a kiwi, the fruit. Die Universität is a university or college. Das Glas is a glass, like a glass you would drink out of, or glass in the window. Der Kämpfer is a fighter. Der LKW is a heavy goods lorry. LKW is short for Lastkraftwagen, LKW. Der Zahn is the tooth. Der Fehler is a mistake. Das Eichhörnchen is a squirrel. Das Fahrrad is a bicycle. Die Flasche is a bottle. And das Amt is a department, in the sense of a government department. Okay, pause the video now. I am going to give the answers in 3, 2, 1. The first one ends in chen. We do not make any changes to the word, so the plural is die Ferkelchen, the piggies. Die Jacke is feminine and ends in an E, so if it ends in an E, the vast majority of the time we're going to stick an N on the end and not do anything else. So die Jacke becomes die Jacken. Das Sofa is both a foreign loanword and it ends with a vowel. So we're going to put an S on the end. Die Sofas. Die Mitarbeiterin is a female co-worker. So we need that special ending that comes after IN, and we get die Mitarbeiterinnen. Die Kiwi is also a foreign loanword, and it ends in a vowel, just like sofa, so we get die Kiwis. Die Universität is a feminine noun, and about 70% of the time or more, when we have a feminine noun, we're going to put an en on the end, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Die Universitäten. Die Universitäten. Das Glas is a one-syllable neuter noun, and in that case, we need to put an umlaut and er. Okay, die Gläser. Ups, Gläser. Gut. Der Kämpfer ends in er, so there's going to be no change to the noun. Der Kämpfer, sorry, der Kämpfer, I'm saying Kämpfer. Die Kämpfer. Der Kämpfer, Kämpfer. Der Kämpfer, die Kämpfer. Der LKW is an abbreviation, so LKWs. Sometimes you'll find these are spelt with all capital letters, and sometimes they're spelt with small letters with just the first letter being a capital. Der Zahn is a masculine one-syllable noun, but it doesn't only take an E. This is one of our exceptions. In this case, we need to have an umlaut and an E, die Zähne. Der Zahn becomes die Zähne. Der Fehler ends in er, the mistake. So mistakes, die Fehler. No change to the noun. Eichhörnchen ends in chen, so no change to the noun. Das Eichhörnchen becomes die Eichhörnchen. Scroll up a little. Das Fahrrad, this is a bit of a trick one. So actually, this is a compound noun. So a noun that has something added onto it, either another noun or a suffix or a prefix. In this case, we have a prefix of the word fahr, which means like a journey or travel, and rad, which is wheel. So a bicycle is a traveling wheel. And the word rad is neuter. It's one syllable, so we need an umlaut and an er. So the plural should be die Fahrräder. Die Fahrräder. Now we have a feminine noun that ends in an E, so we're going to stick an N on the end. Easy peasy. Die Flaschen. Das Amt is a one-syllable neuter noun, so we know what that means, right? Umlaut and er. So it becomes die Ämter. Die Ämter. And that's it for today's video. As I said in the beginning, in my book, you can find different activities for the exercises that we do in the videos. So if you buy a copy of the book, you will find different lists of words to determine their gender and to work out their plural forms in the book for extra practice. If you want to grab a copy of the book, you can scan the QR code that's on screen now or use the links in the description below. So, vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Ciao.